Donnie Darko came out back in 2001. It was directed by Richard Kelly. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal and a bunch of other people, but mainly him. And it is one of my all-time favorite movies, but it is very confusing. Now, it's not really that hard to explain what went on the surface of the movie, but it's not hard explaining what happened so much as explaining why it happened. I'm going to try to the best of my ability to explain to you my understanding of the movie. I have read a lot on it. And I believe the most important thing to figuring out this movie is this book, The Philosophy of Time Travel, which is featured inside the movie as the book that the science teacher gives to Donnie Darko. And it pretty much explains everything that goes on in the movie very, very well. A lot of terms that you need to know that I'm going to be talking about are in that book. So definitely you have to have seen the movie, and I recommend that you have read this book as well. Now, Donnie Darko as a whole is a movie about time. It essentially tells the story about two different timelines, time travel, everything about this. The philosophy of time travel is just about time. Now, in order to understand that, we need to look at this timeline. This is the timeline of the movie. It starts at point A, and then points A to D is what's known as the primary universe, and points B to C are the tangent universe. I'll talk about that in a minute. The majority of the movie takes place between points B and C in the tangent universe. Now, it originates at point A. That's where the movie starts and eventually ends. And then the majority of the movie, except for the last 10 minutes, go from points B to C. The last 10 minutes of the movie also take place at point A. This is really necessary understanding, so you might want to look at this diagram because you're gonna need to know it. And the primary and tangent universes are pretty much the main driving force behind the plot, especially the tangent universe. And the question that most of you are probably asking is, what in the hell is a tangent universe? Which I will answer right now. The best point in the movie to go to explain where or what a tangent universe is the beginning of the movie. Not necessarily the beginning, but the most pivotal scene, and this is when the tangent universe was created, when the jet engine first crashes through Donnie's house. Now, this is exactly when the tangent universe was created. Actually, not exactly when. Actually, I think a few minutes after. But there's Frank over there. He's not really a part of this scene until later. But you see, that's Donnie's house, and there's the plane right above it. Now, to explain what tangent universe is, it's essentially a glitch in the fourth dimension. There's a cube. It's got 3 dimensions. The fourth dimension is time. When there's a glitch in time, it forms a tangent universe. That's one of the very few things that can't be explained. Why did it form? We're not exactly sure, but we do know exactly where it formed. And that would be exactly where the jet engine is. When it forms, it manages to essentially separate the plane and the jet engine, causing it to pretty quickly, fall right into Donnie's house. This is essential, because you see, this is right before that, Frank had pulled Donnie out of the house to save him from dying. Then once again, the question is, why? Why exactly did Frank pull him out? Why is Frank there? I'm going to get into that. First, I'm going to talk about artifacts and living receivers. In this case, the artifact, which is the object of importance, is the jet engine. Now, in order to explain this fully, go back to the philosophy of time travel, which states the entire objective of the living receiver, who in this case is Donnie, is to return that object to the tangent universe. This is the reason why the tangent universe is so unstable and is ready to collapse at any minute, is because there are 2 copies of the same exact thing. The goal of the tangent universe is to be a carbon copy, and in this case, they have 2 of the same thing, which is sort of a paradox, and they really cannot have that. If the tangent universe collapses, then there'll be a black hole in the real world. Donnie's goal is to take the second jet, let's say at that one, back to the primary universe in order to restore order, because right now there's 0 in the primary universe and 2 in the tangent universe. Now, think about it this way. If there's me, there I am. Why is it a problem if I would just disappear, or there'd be 2 of me or something like that? If I were to disappear, like in the primary universe, things would be weird, but no one would really freak out. However, if there were 2 of me to disappear in the same universe, that would be really, really weird. So that is the basic explanation of tangent universes and living receivers. One issue that I just realized I kind of skated over is, how are there 2 in the same universe? Well, you see, the plane from the primary universe entered the tangent universe a few minutes before the jet engine crashed. So, there are now two jet engines because it cut the engine off of the plane from the primary universe, and then the same plane still exists in the tangent universe. It's just on a regular flight or whatever. So now there are two jet engines. Anyway, our living receiver, pictured here beautifully, is Donnie Darko. He has to get this jet engine back to the primary universe, or else the world will literally end. The tangent universe will be so unstable, it'll collapse and cause a black hole in the real universe, the primary universe, and everything will just die. So, he has to ensure that this is going to happen. How is he going to do that? With the help of a few of his friends. The two types of people that are going to be helping Donnie in the tangent universe are the manipulated dead and the manipulated living. The manipulated dead are much more powerful. But the two examples of these in the movie are Frank and Gretchen. Frank is much more apparent of the two. Gretchen kind of doesn't really do as much on the surface. But since these two people die over the course of the tangent universe, they gain powers and are able to go back and set insurance traps, which we'll talk about later. Frank has to go back to the beginning of the movie to help save Donnie's life and ensure that the rest of the tangent universe can actually happen by saving his life from this falling jet engine. Gretchen does similar things, but they're much, much less obvious. She kind of helps lead Frank and Donnie to their insurance traps. The manipulated living are also pretty helpful. The examples are pretty much everyone else in this movie that really didn't die. These people include parents, Lady Death, whatever you want to call her, and the teachers. Now, these people don't really know that they're helping. They're helping on a subconscious level, but I'll talk about that later, how they might actually be more conscious of it, but that they know. A great example of this is when Donnie walks into Drew Barrymore, this English teacher's room. She just got fired, and she's kind of... she's sad. Anyway, she just got fired, and they're kind of talking, but on the board is cellar door. Donnie asks about it. She talks about how it's the most beautiful phrase in the English language, all that stuff. So he kind of builds up an interest in cellar door. And then what eventually ends up happening is later in the movie, about towards the end, right before Gretchen dies, they find Lady Death's house and they decide to investigate in the cellar door because he remembers subconsciously the cellar door, which the manipulated living planted in his mind. This eventually leads to Gretchen's death, Frank's death, all that stuff. Now, as I mentioned before, the goal of the manipulated dead, specifically Frank, is to create insurance traps. Pretty much, this means he needs Donnie to get that engine back to the primary universe. Everyone needs it, because otherwise he will die. These insurance traps are pretty much just ways of ensuring that certain things will happen in the future, and therefore lead to what inevitably needs to happen. One of the first examples of this is when Frank tells Donnie to take the axe and flood the school. Although it seems kind of random and it seems like all the voices are talking to him, that's really not really why it happened. What eventually ended up happening because of this flooding is, namely, school got canceled. And since there's the water everywhere, which is also mentioned in the philosophy of time travel as one of the key elements to time travel along with metal, is due to this flooding, school is canceled, and Donnie ends up walking home with Gretchen. They talk, they kind of hit it off, and this eventually... I made Gretchen fat. This eventually leads to Gretchen and Donnie dating. Eventually, when Gretchen gets shot and killed, this causes Donnie to just be so angry, and he cares so much about this girl that he shoots Frank, who accidentally hit her with the car, in the face. This, in the eye specifically, which is why Frank's eye looks so weird. But this specifically causes Frank to be able to become a manipulated dead, go back in time, and save Donnie. So if Donnie never killed Frank, then Frank would never have been able to save Donnie, and the entire thing would have just failed. Another example of an insurance trap set by Frank is when he sets Jim Cunningham's house on fire. This is some pretty crappy fire. Let's wait. I have some other markers. Oh, good. Red. Fire. When he sets Jim Cunningham's house on fire, it eventually leads to the discovery of his kiddie porn dungeon, as they so lightly put it, and his trial. And I just realized I didn't give Donnie any legs. Too late. And this causes Kitty to not be able to go home, and Donnie's mom to have to go on the trip, which leads to the party, which leads to the escape and the death, and so on and so forth. Frank is causing all of this to happen. And let's return back to that scene where Gretchen is dead, and Donnie is very sad. And let's think, because that is when the moment really changes. Gretchen is just dead, and Donnie is so sad that he knows what he has to do. He creates the portal to bring the engine back to the primary universe. And he has the ability to do this according to the philosophy of time travel, because the manipulated living does gain powers to create this portal. He cuts the very same plane that is carrying his mom and sister. He cuts the engine off. And this isn't really that sad, because it doesn't really kill his mom and sister. The tangent universe doesn't continue. It ends. It ends at that moment. So, he cut the engine off, and eventually it falls down into his house, killing him. Before we talk about that, I'm going to talk about one more thing before I just do an end analysis, and that is the dreams. Now, it's stated in the philosophy of time travel that the manipulated living from the tangent universe, it's very possible that they'll remember nothing. They actually will not remember anything specific, but they might retain subconscious feelings about it. This you can see in the ending of the movie, during the final montage set to Mad World, which was fantastic. And you'll notice that some people seem to be remembering things about the tangent universe. If you look at, it depends on what they did in the universe. His teachers both helped him. They set him on his route, and they both felt happy. You could see they were smiling, and they felt good. Frank put his hand to his eye. He remembers getting shot. That's the thing he retained most. But what's interesting is Gretchen doesn't seem to remember much at all. She says she feels like she knows Mrs. Darko, but otherwise she doesn't seem to retain any memories. I'm not really too sure about why that happened, because she's one of the most important people, but oh well. Jim Cunningham, meanwhile, is crying. He realizes what a terrible person he is. Eventually, he destroys his kiddie porn dungeon, and a few days later, it's said that he kills himself, due to guilt mostly, it's assumed. Now we return to the the end of the movie, which actually is also the beginning. So we are at the point A, in which Donnie is laying in the most poorly drawn bed ever, but this time he is laughing. We're not exactly sure why. The ending is open to a lot of interpretation. See, he is laughing, so he probably remembers something, but what exactly makes him laugh about the tangent universe? What I believe is that he's laughing because he's just accepting it. He's accepting that his life is over. He knows that the jet engine is coming. He's not going to move. Some people suggest that he doesn't remember the tangent universe, but then I say, why is he laughing? And why, it just doesn't make sense. The ending is a lot open to interpretation, but I believe he's staying there because he realizes that Heath believes the world is better off without him. He thinks if he stays alive, then Gretchen and Frank are both going to die, and he's just not worth it. I believe that Donnie just stays in the bed because he wants to die. He doesn't think the world needs him. That was me explaining Donnie Darko to the best of my ability. It's a very confusing movie, and it's my theory. I have formulated it from multiple viewings of the movie and a few websites I read, as well as the philosophy of time travel. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's actually my 5th favorite. But definitely, if you haven't seen Donnie Darko and you still watch this video, definitely watch it. Watch it multiple times. If you've only seen it once, to watch it again. But I hope I helped. Thank you for watching. I hope I just made this movie just less confusing for me. See you next time.